Hey, how you doing? So this is Neil. I'm showing you guys how to make this cool little gun here. So it's basically a way to have the bullets follow the player, but notice I can dodge them because it's only going to go where the player was. It's not a homing missile. I can show you how to easily turn it into a homing missile though. But so in this video, I'm going to show you how to make this cool little spawner. You can use this to have an enemy shoot at the player, to have some sort of turret shoot at the player. You can even use it for the player itself to shoot something else at other people. And this code is adaptable. You can use it for anything else you want to use it for. It'll easily work in your game. And so this code is going to show you how to easily give us three parameters for this gun. One is exactly how many bullets you want it to shoot. So in this case, I have it set to shoot 4 bullets. 2, how fast you want those bullets to go. You can see right now it's like room speed times 0.2 is how fast the bullets are coming. And then the other one is how long you want it to wait in between shooting. So right now it's waiting 2 seconds before it shoots again, which is the burst fire rate. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get started on this. Like I said, as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to make the bullet follow the player versus just going in a fixed direction, like a typical turret would just go like left or right or down or something like that. In this case, it'll actually follow where the player is at, but not continue to follow the player, which would be like a homing missile. But I'll show you how to easily make it follow the player if you wanted to make it follow the player like a homing missile. Alright, so this video is going to cover 2 things. One, the short version. I'm just going to quickly describe what the code is, the logic behind it, in a very quick, fast form way. For those that already know how to code and stuff, they just want to know how it's done. They can just get that out of the way and learn it. And then also for new coders that need to learn the longhand form, which I explain every line, what it's doing, its context, all that kind of stuff. You'll not just learn how to make the spawner if you watch the full, but you'll learn how to do other things. You'll be able to take that knowledge and apply it to other things in coding. So it really is a good way to learn. But anyway, for those who just want to be fast, here's how you do it. First thing, you need 2 objects, and this will work inside any video game that you have. Just make these 2 objects and they'll work inside your game. So first off, you need a spawner. So I call this O spawner. And secondly, you'll need a bullet. In this case, I called it O bullet 2 because I already had one called O bullet. So these are 2 objects you need. What you need inside of the bullet is a crate event. You actually don't need a step event. This is just so it destroys it if it goes beyond room height. You can destroy the bullet however you want. You already know how to code, so you don't need to know that. But you do need to have the direction. So in this case, I have the direction set to follow my player. So basically, whatever direction you want the bullet going, however you want the bullet to work. In this case, I want it to follow my player, so direction equals point direction. This is the X and Y of the bullet, and this is the player. I had to do it minus the O player sprite height divided by 2 because my origin point is at the bottom of my sprite right now. That will make it shoot at the center of my sprite at the player. I set the speed to 4, and that's all you need for the bullet. Now the spawner is where it gets a little more complicated, but not too much. Pretty simple. So the first thing is how the logic works is I have the alarm here in the crate event, which is going to set the rate of fire. And this is just to get the alarm going because default is on 0. And right now it's times 0.2. I can also change it to what I have here, which is divided by 4. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and just change that to divided by 4. Right, so room speed divided by 4, so 1/4 of a second. So every 15 frames it's going to fire off because my game is running at 60 frames a second. I also need to set my burst count to 0, and this is how many bullets are going to be able to fire. Now inside of alarm 0, remember this sets it off, so boom, alarm 0. What's inside of alarm 0 is I have if burst fire is less than 4, whatever number this is, that's exactly how many bullets are going to be fired. So if you want 6 bullets, make that number 6. And then it's going to create the bullet. This here creates the bullet. Make sure you put your name of the object you want it to create. You can also use this to spawn enemies, by the way. And then this is your burst count, so +1. So burst count equals burst count +1, and this is going to add 1 to the count. So it starts off as 0, and then it's going to go, next it's going to go 1, then 2, 3. Once it equals 4, it's going to stop firing. So we need to reset that burst count, and that's what we're going to do with another alarm. This alarm allows for the rate of fire, so this keeps this going over and over again in a loop. But it's going to break out of this loop once this equals 4 because now it's not greater than 4 anymore. So once burst count equals 4, it'll stop doing this, and this sets how fast it shoots. Right now, 1/4 of a second. So this is the rate of fire, how fast the bullets are moving next to each other. If you want more bullets moving very quickly, like a machine gun, make this number, change this number here. So if it's 1, that's going to be every 1 second. It's going to be really slow. If you want it to be fast, make this even smaller. So like divided by 8 is a really good machine gun, by the way. Okay, then this alarm here is going to reset our burst count. So if alarm 1 equals -1, just which is going to be true by default, so this is already true because we haven't set the alarm anywhere. And because the alarm is not set anywhere, it's -1 by default, which means it's off. So if it's off, turn it on. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn it to 3 seconds. So change this number here to how long you want it to wait before it shoots again. So in this case, times 3 is 3 seconds because I'm at 60 frames a second. And then in alarm 1, all we're going to do, once this fires every 3 seconds, we're going to reset our burst count back to 0. And because burst count is set back to 0, this equals true again, because 0 is less than 4. And then it's going to create a bullet, it's going to count 1, create a bullet, count 1, create a bullet, count 1, until it equals 4 again, and then this is going to reset it back to, after 3 seconds, it's going to reset it back to 4. So basically, this is how many bullets, this is how fast the bullets are going to go, and this is how long it'll wait before shooting again. And that's it. That's all you need in order to have a really cool burst fire. You can put this inside of enemies, inside of turrets. You know, your imagination, use it. You can also use this to spawn enemies. I go in more details about that at the end of this, at the total end of this video. But yeah, so instead of spawning bullets, you can have it spawn zombies or something. I also show how to randomize everything, an easy way to make all this random, so that way it's shooting a random amount of bullets or spawning a random amount of enemies, and then it's doing it at random speeds. You can also do it at random wait times. You can make all of it random or just one of them random. Anyway, that's it. Now let's get on to the long form, where I'm going to explain everything in great detail. And that's really good for beginners. That I wish there were more tutorials out there like that when I was learning. I wish there were more tutorials out there like that even now for things that I don't understand fully yet. Alright, so if you got everything you needed and you're ready to close the video, do me a favor and smash that like button. Much appreciated. Alright. On to those who need more in-depth explanation of what's happening here. Let's get started. Alright, cool. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to have to do is, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this object for now, and we're going to create a new one. So in objects, I'm going to create a new object. We're going to need 2 objects for this tutorial. Make sure that you're not just in a blank canvas or something. Make sure you open up some sort of platform or something where you have a player you can move around, at least a player you can move left or right, and he has a ground to stand on so he's not going to fall through it, something like that. So you might have followed a tutorial for a basic platform or something like that. This will work in any game, so just create these objects inside that game. So we're going to call this oSpawner, and I think that should work because I don't think I have anything else called that. Or you can say obj spawner, however you like to name your objects. That's up to you. This is how I name them. So we're going to create this. I'm going to go ahead and call this delete so I remember to delete it. In fact, actually, I think I already have sprites that I was supposed to delete. Yeah, hold on a second. I was recording this a second ago and I didn't like how it was going, so I deleted everything starting over. So I'm going to delete this. Don't show again. And I need to update my thing. So what happened is I bought a new laptop and I have to go and change all my default settings on this program here. Alright, cool. So now I'm going to click here. This is going to make it to where I can create a new sprite for this object. I'm going to just call this delete, so I remember to delete it like I just did a second ago. Edit the image. Actually, before I edit the image, I'm going to change the size by clicking this icon here, resize the sprite. I'm going to set it to, I don't know, 16. Hit apply. It's going to do both of them automatically. This default, mine's been going top left. I usually go to my settings and change this, but I haven't done that yet. So middle center. It's always a good idea to see what this is, because this can cause all kinds of problems, and you're like, what the hell, why is my code not working right? It's because this is probably not set. Really quickly, what this means, this is how Gamemaker references the X and Y position of your object. So whenever you write code inside of an object and you say X or Y, that's that object's X or Y. And this is the X or Y. So by default it's up here. This is 0, 0 top left. This is an 8 pixel by 8 pixel object. So halfway here from left to right, this being 0, as I move right, the numbers get bigger, and that's the X position. So this would be X4 right here in the middle, because the 8 pixel object. So 4 would be in the middle. So X equals 4 here, and then from the top is 0. And going down, the numbers get bigger. So down here is 8. That's the Y position. So Y counts downward. I know it's kind of weird just how it is. Anyway, so 4 would be here in the middle. Anyway, just for those that don't know that, This is 4, 4 basically. So x equals 4, y equals 4 is what this is saying. And so whenever I refer to my objects, that is this case my O spawners x and y, it's going to be in the center of its object, and that's going to be where I'm talking about. So when I create a bullet at its x and y, it's going to create it in the center. If I wanted to create it down here, I would say something like, I could either move this to here, or I can code in, say, you know, x and then y plus 4, plus goes down, that would put it right here. Okay, so that's that. Oh yeah, hold on a second, let me go ahead and edit that. Click here, so open the object, click here. I'm going to edit this and make it be a color like blue or something. Use the paint bucket, fill it in, scroll down here to the layer, put the opacity down like that, and now we're done with that object. Okay. Also, I'm going to do here really quickly, I'm going to go right click Windows, I'm going to just close all so I have everything available that I want available. So next, we need one other object for this tutorial, and that is going to be the bullet itself. So right click here and choose create object. I'm going to go here, click here again for resizing the sprite. We're going to make this 8 pixels. So 8 by 8. Again, make sure this is in the center, middle center, because if this is in the top left of your bullet, then it's when you try to tell the bullet where to go, it's gonna, you know, anyway, you're gonna get weird results. You're not gonna know why, and this is why, because it's drawing from the top left of the bullet and not the center. Let's go to edit the image. I'm gonna fill this in with the light gray, and we're gonna use the circle tool here. Start from the left corner, drag to the right corner, make sure it's on fill right here, and there you go. That's our bullet. We can go and X out of that now. Actually, I should have kept that open now that I think about it, just so I can easily go between it. So actually, I think before we do anything else, I want to at least give our bullet something to do. So I need to reset this in my default too. I'm going to create a step event as well. And just so that it does something, so the bullet does something when it's created, I'm going to tell it direction equals, I don't know, 180. It's 180 would be to the left. Straight down would be, I think, 240 or something like that. Anyway, the way the angles work is on the right it starts, imagine you have a circle. On the right it starts at 0, and as it goes around like this, the top is 90, and then over here is 180, then down here I think that's 240, and then back up here is 0 again. So just so you know how that works. And then I'm going to do speed equals, I don't know, 4. We'll make it kind of slow for right now. Remember to end your sentences or your coding with exclamation mark, or not exclamation mark, sorry, semicolons, unless, you know, obviously it's part of if statement or something like that. Just a good habit to get into. All right, that's that. Now we got the bullet actually doing something. Otherwise, the bullet won't do anything. We're going to be changing this to follow the player and stuff, but for now, we're just going to leave it like that. All right, now let's go back to our spawner, and let's go ahead and get this thing doing something. A create event and a step event. I don't want to keep, I guess I can delete this. I hate doing this every single time. And if you want to write a description, you can do that here, and, you know, tell it, you know, what it is if you want to. This is the spawner or whatever, creates bullets, whatever you want to call it, or in the create event, whatever, you know, variables, or whatever you want to call that. I'm just going to call it nothing for right now, or just do that. All right, so let's go to our bullet spawner and create event. So I had worked all this out previously. Now, what I highly recommend doing is when you're coding is to code in stages. That's what we're going to do. We're going to code this in stages so we can check each stage. So think about it logically and go, okay, this is how I want it to work. But code one part and go, okay, I need the bullet to shoot first. Before we start trying to figure out its rapid fire and burst fire and all that kind of stuff, let's just get the bullet shooting, make sure that's working, check that in your game, make sure that's working, then move on to the next step. And the reason why I like to do it that way is one, it's easier to figure out stuff and start simple and then making it more and more complex. Another thing it does is it helps you catch errors. So if you just try to write all the code at one, like you have an idea for how it should work, and you write it all at one time, and then it's not working correctly, it's harder to find why it's not working correctly. But if you go in steps, you can figure out very easily, this is why it's not working correctly, because that's the last thing I was coding, and so I know the problem is somewhere there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, why does this keep stop bouncing on me? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write alarm 0 like this, and we're going to make that equal room speed times 0.2. exactly how many frames it is, I'm not sure. My room speed is 60 frames a second. The reason why you want to do it times room speed or divided by room speed, depending on how fast or slow you want it to go, is because if you're on different machines, this will make the bullet always be the same speed, no matter if they're on a laggy machine, an older machine, or a newer machine. It just makes it to where everyone has like the same kind of experience. And I recommend to try to get in the habit of doing it times room speed. All right, the next thing we need to do is we need a variable that's burst count. So this is in the create event. I'm just gonna try to go through as much information as I can so that it makes sense what I'm talking about for those that might be totally new to coding. So we're in the create event of the object. In this case, we're in O spawner, so that's the object. You can see that over here, O spawner. So whenever we write code inside of an object, that code refers directly to object. So anytime I write X or Y, that's going to refer to the X and Y of the O spawner, which you know is in the center of the object, because I showed you that in the sprite. That's why I explained all that. And any sort of variables I write are inside of O object are that character's particular variable. So if I wanted to refer back to this variable here, burst count, but I want it specifically to refer to O spawner, but I'm writing inside another object. I'm writing code inside of, I don't know, let's say the bullet or something. I want to refer back to O spawner's variable burst count. You can do that by typing O spawner and then dot and then whatever variable you're trying to reference to. And you can also refer to other things, X and Y and things like that. And also the create event runs when the object's created, and that's it. So it only runs one time when the object's created. The step event runs continually. When the object's created, the step event code will run over and over again, looping through it very, very quickly, many times, usually many times a second. So every single frame it's going through it, boom, 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 boom. Or you can maybe say once a second. I think it's every frame it runs through the code. So anyway. So this means that my alarm 0 is going to be set to room speed times 0.02. I'm not sure exactly how fast that is if I were to try to say how much of a second that is, but you saw, that's how fast it was. What you saw in the beginning of this video where the bullets are shooting, that's how fast they're shooting. So that's the rate of fire. Okay, that's how you adjust the rate of fire by adjusting this number. This number here is going to adjust how many bullets to fire. And that's what this variable is going to do. Okay, now let's get into the part where we start writing code. And we're going to do that not inside the step event. Actually, we're not even going to need a step event. We're going to do that inside the alarm, which is basically going to be similar to a step event. So let's go ahead and right-click this and delete it. Delete event, and it's gone. Go here to alarm and alarm 0. If you want to put a description for the alarm, you can. So that's the rate of fire. So the first thing we're going to do is if burst. Actually, we don't have to do if burst yet. Technically, we can just say instance create. So let's start in steps. Let's get it shooting a bullet first. Instance create layer, and we're going to do X and Y, and I'll explain this in a second. Fireball shoot. You want to do a layer that you actually have. Don't do fireball shoot, because if you don't have that layer, it's not going to work. And O bullet, what did I call it? Oh, I didn't call anything yet. I'm going to call O bullet 2 though. I'm going to go back and rename that. Sorry, I forgot to tell you to do that. Okay, so down here, my object, that's the bullet, I need to rename that. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to call O bullet 2 because I already have one called O bullet. That updates to, notice that updates to red because it's recognizing that it's referring back to an object. Now this will create a bullet, but it's only going to create one bullet, and I recommend going and try that now to make sure it works. So what instance create layer does, and what it is, it's basically a function which is like a script. So it's like a built-in script inside of Gamemaker that they have made. So whenever you write your own scripts and then you refer to your own script, you refer to this way if it has anything inside of these brackets. Another script, for example, would be like, I think end game is one. No, or is it? I thought it was. Maybe not. Why can I not think of a? Well, it's not a script, but a built-in function that doesn't have anything. Oh yeah, like instance destroy, for example. Usually you don't have to write anything in the brackets. It's just instance destroy, and you can just go like that, and it's going to know to destroy itself. If you wanted to destroy another instance, you write the object here, and that would destroy a different instance. Anyway, so instance create layer is replacing another function that used to exist in Gamemaker. I forgot what it was called. I haven't coded in the older Gamemakers, but I've seen the code, and so I know that's what it used to be called, and it's like create object or something. The X and Y here, remember, refers to the object we're coding in is x and y. So in this case, we're coding inside of O spawner. So this refers to O spawner's x and O spawner's y. That's what x and y here is. So we're creating at that x and at that y, which remember, is at 4 and 4 pixels because the object is 8 by 8 pixels, and we put it middle center. So at the middle of the object is where this is being created. This is the layer. You have to put it in. Quotation marks, and it has to match exactly as you have it spelt over here. So if you don't have a layer called fireball shoot and you want it to be exactly like my code, then just make a layer over here, a regular layer, an instance layer, and then rename it by right clicking on it and then rename the layer, or hit F2, like select it and hit F2 like that, and you can rename it. And name it fireball shoot. Make sure you have the capital F in there, underscore shoot. Exactly, it must match exactly. Give you a second to check that out, and then, okay, cool. The next thing is the object you want to create, and what's kind of cool is you can see at the bottom here, it's kind of telling you, X and Y. Now we need the layer ID or name, and so we put that there, and then over here we need the object. So we add, in this case, the object I want to create on this layer at this object's X and Y, that is at my spawner's X and Y. In the middle of my spawner, I want to create this object here, which is obullet2. And right now, we know that obullet2 has at least enough code in to make it do something. It should shoot straight down at the speed of 4. So let's go ahead and check that out, make sure it's working. It should only shoot one bullet because we have the create event for the alarm, which only sets the alarm one time. So the alarm is not being reset right now, so it should only shoot one bullet. And, well, I guess I have to have the object inside the level, otherwise nothing's going to happen. So let's take our spawner, move it somewhere like that, try that again. And as you can see, it shoots one bullet out. Cool, and it shot it slow, so everything's working. All right, so that's step 1. Let's go into step 2 now, which is to make this bullet shoot at a certain speed, and that's where we're going to reset the alarm here. I'm going to set it down here because we're going to add more code anyway. But for now, I just want to show you that if you set the alarm, it's going to work. So alarm. This way you can, also this helps you understand the code a little bit better, I think. Times 0.2, so we're going to have it be the same speed again. 0.2. So what that does is now we're resetting the alarm. Because alarm 0 is similar, that is, alarms are similar to step events in that the code is run over and over again every frame, then every time it's going to run through this every frame, and it's going to, well, actually, I think, I'm trying to think if that's right. It's going to count it down. Yeah, so basically, once the alarm 0 equals 0, so it's going to count down, but it's not going to keep resetting it in this case. It's actually going to, the way the alarms work is it actually waits till the alarm is set, and then it's going to, once the alarm reaches 0, then this code is run. So sorry about that. It doesn't run every frame like a step event. The code inside of here only runs when the alarm reaches 0. When it reaches 0, it sets itself to -1. It remains at -1, which means off, until you turn it back on. This turns it back on again. So this turns it on initially. Once the object's created, it turns it on. That's why a bullet's created instantly. The bullet's then created, right? Because once this reaches 0, so it starts at this speed, and then once this reaches 0, bam, it triggers this code in alarm 0. It creates the bullet. After it creates the bullet, it then resets the alarm back to 2, and then once this reaches 0 again, it creates the bullet and then sets the alarm. Creates the bullet, sets the alarm. So this is like an infinite loop, but it's on a loop, a time loop, right? So it's every 0.2 of a second, whatever. Let's go ahead and test that. We should see bullets coming out, and you'll see this is the rate of fire. By changing this number, you change your rate of fire. So a lower number will be slower, a bigger number will be faster. And so I guess 240 isn't quite straight down. It's kind of at an angle. I think maybe so 260 might be straight down. That's not really important anyway. We're going to have it follow the player, but you can see that's the rate of fire. So if you change this number here, I recommend also to change it here when you do, but just to kind of show you, because this is only going to happen once, and then after that every bullet's going to follow this speed. Let's change this to let's just change it to 1. Room speed times 1, so it's going to fire at room speed, which is 60 frames a second. It's going to be very fast. Or sorry, I meant it's going to be slower. What am I talking about? If you want even that's basically 1 second. It's shooting one bullet every second. Two would be times 2 would be 2 seconds. Now if you can also divide it. So if you want to divide it, if that makes more sense to you, you can divide by 2, and that would be half a second. Divide by 4, eighth of a second, so forth. So that's another way you can write the code if that makes more sense to your brain on how fast the rapid fire is going to be. And so you can see there, eighth of a second. And I like that. That's pretty good. Let's just try 8. I'm just kind of curious what 8 feels like. Which I think would be a 16th of a second. Or maybe with 32. I'm not sure. That's super fast. So if you want a really fast machine gun, that works pretty good. But I'm gonna go back to let's go back to 4 because that works good for this demo. Okay, cool. So now everything's working right, and we're going step by step. Now we understand what the code does. Hopefully, you understand why this is working and what's happening here. I think that's important because if I can make this tutorial a lot faster, but then you wouldn't really learn anything. If all you want to know is just the code on how to do it, or just the logic on how to do it. I probably should have led with that, huh? If I remember, I'll start the beginning of this tutorial with just the logic on how to do it really fast, just showing you how to do it, and then I'll go through detail like this, like I'm doing now. Anyway, so now we need to change the. So we have it shooting at a certain speed. That's great, and for some people, that's all you're going to need is just a gun that shoots at a certain speed in a certain direction, and that's fine, and that's good for certain turrets and things like that. Some that shoots arrows or something. What if we want to make it so that we have burst count? That is, we want to be able to adjust exactly how many bullets it fires in between shooting. So in this case, we're going to say if burst count is less than 4. Now there's different ways to write code, so you can write your code however you want. Typically when I do an if statement, I do it like this. I like it to line my brackets to line up with my if statement. So if I write another if statement inside of this one, I would say if, and then my brackets would be, like that. That way everything's lined up. That's just how I've been liking it lately. Maybe I'll change, but there's different ways to do it. The spacing doesn't matter. You can have this bracket be up here. A lot of people write their code like that, like this. The spacing doesn't matter. Like I said, you can have it to where it's like that. It's still going to be the same. So make your spacing however you want it. Some people like to, indent this like this, for example. I don't. Sometimes I used to do it that way, but I like it this way now. Anyway, so if burst count is less than 4, what that means right now, that's true because this sets burst count to 0. All this means is, all this line of code is doing is it's putting this value inside of these words. So now these words equal 0. That's basically all you're telling the computer. You're telling, hey, whenever you see this number burst count, you're basically seeing 0. So what I'm saying is if 0 is less than 4, which is true, then create a bullet. But I also want to count that burst count up each time it creates a bullet. And what that's going to do, so bullet count plus plus, this basically just means it's going to take the, or not bullet count, burst count plus plus. This is going to take the, and put your semicolon at the end of your lines there where they're ending these conditions or results, whatever the thing you want to happen. Up here is the condition you don't want to put you don't put after if statements. So anyway, that's all. You should already know all that. It's just important to get into the habit of doing that. So burst count plus plus is basically the same as if I write burst count equals burst count. It's just a faster way of doing it, plus 1. This means the same thing. Both pieces of code mean the exact same thing. If I wanted it plus 2, I need plus 2, which means every time it runs through this, it's going to add 2 to 0. So 0 equals 2, and then 2 plus 2 equals 4, and so forth. So adding 2 to it. We just want to add 1 to it every time. What this means is that every time it runs through this code. So now let's go ahead and think about what's happening. So the first thing happens, object's created. It sets the alarm to 2, which makes the alarm active. It sets burst count to 0. Because the alarm is active, it runs through this code here. It runs line by line. Remember, that's how code works. It reads the first line, the next line, the next line, the next line, the next line. It runs from top to bottom, and that's how the code works. Unless you have like a while loop, and then it'll run inside the while loop until it exits out of it. But then it still works top to bottom until it loops out of it, and then it still goes from there, works its way back down. Okay, so if burst count is less than 4, which it is right now, because remember right now it just set it to 0, then create the bullet, so it creates a bullet. In this case now, after it creates the bullet, it now adds 1 to burst count, so 0 plus 1 equals 1. So now burst count doesn't equal 0, burst count now equals 1. And then down here it resets the alarm to alarm 0 equals room speed divided by 4, so like would it be, wait, actually that would be a fourth of a second, isn't it? Because divided by 2 would be a half a second, divided by 4, I think it'd be a fourth of a second. Yeah. Anyway, pretty sure that's right. So now we have a fourth of a second. So if we have 60 frames, half would be 30 frames, half of that would be 15 frames. So basically every 15 frames it's shooting a bullet. It's done with the code, but this reset the alarm. So what does that tell it to do? Because alarms reset again, it reruns the code inside alarm 0 because it's active again. Because in other words, alarm runs down to 0 and then hits -1, and then this tells go back to a certain number, in this case 15 frames exactly, and then it's going to run this code inside the alarm again. So now it's going to run it again. It runs it again. Burst count this is true. That is 1 is less than 4. Creates another bullet. 1 plus 1 equals 2, so now burst count equals 2, resets alarm, repeats. This is still true because 2 is less than 4, creates another bullet, burst count now equals 3. Resets the alarm, does it again. 3 is less than 4, creates another bullet, burst count, 3 plus 1 is 4, and sets the alarm, goes to the code again. This time what happens? 4 is not less than 4, 4 is equal to 4. So because 4 is not less than 4, it doesn't run this code. But it does run this code. But it doesn't matter because it gets back here and it's still false. So until this equals true again, it's going to continue to say that the burst count doesn't equal the right number, right? Let's go and run the game again. There you go, see? So it shot 4 bullets. Everything is great. So now this is where we need a second alarm, because we need a way to reset our burst count. So after it does this, we need a way to reset our burst count back to 0. Now if we just set down here our burst count back to 0, we're never going to have that pause. We need to have a pause, and this second alarm is going to tell us how long to wait before restarting the whole process again, before shooting 4 more bullets. Because you saw I just shot 4 bullets and that was it. What we're going to do now is we're going to set another alarm in order to reset the burst count. So basically, let's say we want the burst count reset to 0, that is to shoot 4 more bullets again, but we want that to take like 2 seconds. We want it to take 3 seconds. This next piece of line is how long it waits before it shoots again. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go if alarm 1, if alarm 1 equals -1. This means that it's by default. I think that's what the alarm equals anyway, unless you tell it to equal something else. So by default that's true. It just means that it's off. The alarm is not set right now because we haven't set the alarm anywhere. We're not setting it inside the create event, so there's no alarm. This alarm 1 is not set right now. Let's go ahead and create that event too. Create alarm 1. We'll come back here and set this. This is going to be how long to wait to shoot. Right, so if alarm 1 equals 1, which is going to be true, which means that the alarm is set to off right now, then alarm, go back here, then alarm 1 is going to equal room speed. This is how you tell how long you want to wait. And if you do times a number, that's how many seconds to wait. So in this case, times 2 is going to be 2 seconds. That's if you have your game set to 60 frames a second. I recommend to do that anyway. But if it's set to run 30 frames a second, then times 2 is not going to be 2 seconds. So you have to figure out the math on that pretty easy. All right, so there you go. Bam, now we have every 2 seconds. Now what this code is going to do is, if this is true, so if our alarm is turned off, then we're going to basically set our alarm back to 2 seconds. That's all this code says. This is basically an infinite loop that it's going to fire 2 seconds. Once the alarm counts down to 0, it's going to then equal -1. This is going to be true, and it's going to reset again. But it's only going to do that inside of alarm 0. So only if alarm 0, so only when this alarm is going off, which is happening like 1/4 of a second, then this code will run and tell it to reset to 2. Now all we have to do is go to alarm 1 to reset bullet count back to 0. So we're going to say bullet count equals 0. Not bullet count, sorry. No, I keep doing that. Burst count. It's because technically, you could call it bullet count if you want to, if that makes more sense, because it kind of does. That is, if you think about it, that's how many we're telling exactly how many bullets to fire, which is the burst fire, the burst rate of fire. But you can also call it bullet count, because that's exactly how many bullets are going to come out of the gun when we set it up here. And then this piece of code here is telling it how long to wait before shooting again. This one is over here, so if you want to rewrite these codes, you can. Here, this is the same thing. Double slash is a comment, so it doesn't run this code. This is just a comment so you know, or other people know what your code's doing. This sets how many bullets to fire, and this sets how fast to shoot. If you want to put more information, something like, a higher number is, slower, whatever, Anyway, so that's it. So now our bullet should continue to shoot. Now we got to obviously make it follow the player, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But now you can see it's going to continue to shoot like that. Notice it's shooting from the center of the object, and that's because I told it X and Y, and then right now I set its X and Y to its center on the sprite like I showed you, and I also set the middle center of the ball. So the center of the ball is lining up with the center of the square, and that's why it's shooting out. Notice it's firing exactly how I want it to. If I want the fire rate to be slower, or not the fire rate, well, this would be the fire rate. We already adjusted that. But if I adjust this number, now it'll wait 3 seconds between shooting. And this is great for if you wanted to like shoot fireballs up in the air from a pit, like in Mario Brothers and stuff like that. You can do that, and you can make them go up and come back down. Just give them some gravity. That part's pretty easy to figure out. You can see they don't hurt me right now because I don't have any damage set. That's something else for a different tutorial, or you should know how to make things hurt the player. So notice right now it's on the wrong layer. See how it's going behind this thing? That's a bad layer. I should have put it higher up, which I can easily do by just adjusting the layers. I can just take this layer and move it up above the player, because I also want it to go above the player. Something like here. And now when I do it, it's going to go in front of the player and also in front of the tiles. As you can see. I could have done that in code too. I didn't have to, but it's just easier to change the layer depth. But I could have also just changed the depth in the code itself. After the bullet's created, change its depth. Anyway, so there we go. We got that. Now let's go back to our workspace. All right, so now how do we make the bullet do something different, like follow the player or go a different direction? Well, let's go back to our bullet code. The way I've written my code is kind of complicated, but it really comes in handy for other stuff down the road. So I think I'm going to show how to do it that way. Like maybe I'll show how to do it an easy way first, and then we'll go back to the. Well, yeah, I think I'll just do that. So if I want to change the direction, if I change this to 260, I think 260 is straight down. Almost. So I guess 280 is straight down. I'm pretty positive. Hold on. That's just to make sure, because my brain's like that. 280 is straight down. So 180 is the left, and no, 280 is, so I don't know what it is. Is it 270 or something? I mean, you can look it up and see for sure, but that's weird. I thought it would have been one of those more even numbers like that. Anyway, so that's how you can change the direction and speed of the bullet. But what if we wanted to have it follow the player? Well, in this case, we don't want to use a step event then. Unless you want it to be homing, and I'll show that in a second. So the easier way to do this is going to be, and I have to do it minus sprite height divided by 2 because my origin point, for my x point and my y point is actually, so my x point is in the center of my object, but my y point is at the bottom. So it's bottom center is how I have it originated. So the bullets are going to shoot toward my player's feet unless I tell it not to. And so I can show you how to do that. It's kind of cool. So what we want to do is we want to first say we want our direction not to just equal percentage of the direction. Remember, direction is a circle. Right is 0, and then 0 degrees. And as you move around to the left clockwise, straight up is 90, left is 180, down is, I don't know, 260 or something, 265, 270, whatever it is. So in this case, I want my direction to equal a point direction. This is another built-in function in Gamemaker. And so what point direction, you can always middle mouse click on any of these and it's going to bring up exactly what it does, and it'll tell you what this does. So this function returns the direction of a vector formed by the specified components. The first one, so x1 and y1, and then x2 and y2 in relationship to the fixed xy coordinates of the room. So basically it's going to tell it to move from these coordinates to these coordinates, right, in a straight line. So in this case, because this is being written inside the bullet, what does xy refer to? It refers to the bullet's xy, right? O bullet 2 xy, because that's where I'm writing my code inside of. So remember that the xy by itself is always going to equal the xy of the object that you're writing inside of. So the xy is referring to my bullet, which is going to be the center of my bullet. Okay, but where do I want the bullet to move from? From the center of the bullet to where? I want it to move to my player's x and y. So in this case, I'm going to write O player, because I want to refer to its x, dot x, and that's going to refer to its player. So whenever you want to refer to a player's variable, you would type the object and then period and then whatever you want to refer to. I can also refer to variables. So like I have a variable, I believe called facing. Yeah, see, O player dot facing is one of its variables. So I want to refer to that variable I can. Okay, so we got x and O player y. Oops. Come on, my fingers aren't working. Okay, there we go. So now we got our O player X and O player Y. So this means that it's going to move from my object's X and Y, the ball's X and Y, the center of the ball, to, this would normally be the center if I had my thing set in the center of my player, it would go to the center of my player. But I don't have it set that way, so it's actually going to go to my player's feet because of this. I'm going to show you an easy way to fix that. But let's go ahead and put that in there, and it still makes speed equal 4 for right now. And voila, so now my direction is equaling this point direction, right? So it's no longer just a basic number. It's now from one point to another point, which is pretty cool that you can do that. So notice now it's going to shoot towards my player's feet. Watch as I walk. I'm gonna try to keep walking while it's shooting. So the bullets kind of changed a little bit there. So it's shooting toward my feet. Now if I wanted to shoot toward the middle of my player, remember, so if I go to my player, notice that it's at the bottom center. So my X and Y is right here. So my X is in the center, but my Y is all the way at the bottom of my sprite. So if I wanted to, I can say plus, minus sprite height, which would be this whole sprite height here. So minus the sprite, since I don't know the sprite height, I don't want to use hard numbers anyway. So I'm just going to tell it sprite height, so it knows this full sprite height right here, divided by 2, which will put it in the center. So if I minus, remember minus goes up. Because this is at the bottom, I have to minus it because the y is at the bottom. So if I minus from y, it means it goes up. If I plus y, it goes down. That's something that's just weird in Gamemaker, that y is down, and anyway, so you have to get used to that. But that's why I'm minusing and not adding. If I add it, it's going to go down even further. Okay, so we want to bring it to the center. If I want to bring it to the center, if I wanted to bring it up here, then maybe I divide it by a different number, divide it by 3 or whatever to get it higher or lower. In this case, I'm just going to have it go to the center because that works. Right click on the screen here and you can go to the last things you've been using. So Windows, and we've been working on spawner bullet. We're working on bullet right now. It's just faster sometimes than going over here and trying to find what you're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and go minus sprite height. Remember, this is going to be player sprite height. I think should. I don't think I have to tell it player sprite height. Maybe I do, because I'm writing this inside a bullet. But I think because I just said player dot y, I think this should still work. Let's find out. If it doesn't, then I have to put minus player dot sprite height. Actually, I think I might have to do that, because I don't think it's, yeah, it's not recognized. So right now this is objects, the bullet sprite height, which is only like 8. So we need to do player dot sprite height divided by 2. So now it's players y minus players sprite height divided by 2, and that's going to make the ball go right toward the center of my character. If I wanted to shoot more at the head or something like that, then you can hard code a number in there. Just add, plus. At the end of that, you can plus, I don't know, 10 pixels or something. But this right here, works good, I think. If I go straight underneath it, it's going to shoot me like this. If I go over here, it's always going to shoot at my player. But notice I can still dodge it, see? Because it's shooting each bullet. So if I stay right here and then run, see, they kind of follow me, but they're not homing missiles. They're only following me when they're created. And that's that. If you want them to work like homing missiles, that's really easy to do. But there's other things I was going to show you how to do here with the bullet. I guess that's pretty much it. I'm not going to go into how to make the bullet hurt the player. It's pretty easy, but you definitely want to make the bullet die. So maybe I can show how to do that. It's kind of, I don't know. My game uses when it hits a wall, but my game uses basically if it hits a solid. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really explain that right now because that's going to get into tiles and stuff. I can at least show you how to destroy it if it goes outside the room so it doesn't continue to be created. And we'll do that in a second. But anyway, so if you want this to be a homing missile, all you have to do is take this right here, Control X to delete it and copy at the same time, and Control V to paste it inside of the step event. And now you got homing bullets. Because, and I'll explain why this works this way. This is a common, I think, mistake people make. See that? Look at that. They're following me. Notice how they're staying on my center position. The balls aren't going anywhere because I haven't told them to be destroyed when they touch player. So they're just staying with me. So all those balls are staying with me. But you can see it's homing missiles. So that's how you'd make homing missiles. And you can always like set to a different state, like a state machine for your bullet, and have a state 2, which is chase the player, and this would be inside that state, and then have that state set to an alarm so that it only stays in that state for, let's say, 4 seconds. So the bullet would only follow your player for 4 seconds, and then make the bullet slower because they're homing, obviously. And there you go. And you maybe only fire 1 at a time instead of 4 at a time or something. Right, so that's how you do that. Let's go ahead and put that back over here. Oh yeah, why this does this is, remember, the step event is running every frame of the game. So it's running through all this code every frame. So every frame this is being called. So every frame it's saying, take the direction of the bullet, it's X and Y, and then let's have it chase the player. That is, let's move it from the bullet's X and Y to the player's X and Y, obviously minus the sprite height, etc. And it's doing that every single frame. So when the bullet moves a little bit and the player moves, it then readjusts this code again, and it's telling it to keep following the player, which makes it have a homing effect. So if you're ever wondering, like if you set an alarm inside of a step event and you're wondering why your alarm isn't working right, it's because it's resetting your alarm every time. And let me explain that, because that's something really important. It's a common mistake I see made. I know I've made it myself before. So if you just say like alarm 2, equals room speed, I don't know, times 1 or times 2, and then I go into alarm 2 and I tell it to do something, it's never going to happen. And the reason why it's never going to happen is this is never going to allow the alarm to count down. Imagine you start the game, frame 1, boom, this code sets my alarm to 2 seconds, let's say. That's basically what this means, to 120 frames. I get down to the next frame of my game, This code runs again, resets my alarm back to 120 frames. We go one more frame into the game. This code runs again, tells my alarm to reset back to 120 frames to 2 seconds. So in other words, the alarm starts to count down and then it resets it. It starts to count down, resets it. So this code just keeps resetting the alarm, and therefore the alarm never gets a chance to count down to 0. And that's why that doesn't work. An easy way to make an alarm like this work inside of a step event is to say if alarm 2 equals -1. Oops, don't put that there. Now this will work because now we're saying if the alarm is inactive, so in other words, it only equals -1 if the alarm is count down. Now by default, the alarm is -1 until you tell it not to be. So right now this will be true. And then it's going to count this alarm down, and then this will be true again. Because, well, this is going to reset it, and then the alarm is going to automatically start counting down. That's part of its function, as it counts down. And as the alarm counts down, once it counts down to 0, it's going to run the code in alarm 2. So if I create an alarm 2 here inside a bullet, that is going to be true. So let's just to give you an idea, I'm going to show you that this does work. This isn't how you do it, by the way, but how you delete the object. I'm just going to show you could use the alarm this way. So let's go to alarm 2. And I know you can do this, right? You don't have to use alarm 0 or 1. Notice the only alarm I have in here is 2. So I could use alarm 0 because it's for every object. You get 12 alarms for every object. So I could start with alarm 0, but I already wrote 2, so I'm using 2. So you don't have to use the alarm. As long as it's not being used yet by this object, then you're fine. Okay, so what do I want to happen when this alarm happens? So when this alarm runs down, what do I want to happen? How about let's destroy instance destroy. Now in this case, because we're destroying itself, we don't have to write anything inside these brackets because it's destroying itself. If you wanted it to destroy a different object, like what if you wanted to, after that alarm counted down, you wanted to destroy player for some reason? You can type player here, and it's going to destroy the player. And just to show you that that works, let's go ahead and do that. So the bullet's going to be created, and then after 2 seconds, the bullet's going to destroy the player. And it gives me an error because I'm not sure why. Because I can't find object. Oh, because I think it tried to destroy the player, but there's 2 bullets, so the next bullet is trying to destroy the player too, but it can't because the player doesn't exist. And so I think an easy way to fix that would be if does the object exist? Yeah, I think it's if object exist, player. So now only if the player exists is it going to destroy the player. This should work now, I think. There might be some other code I have running that makes my player too complicated for this to work, but yeah, so it still doesn't want to work because I don't care to figure this out because I can figure it out, but I don't care to. No reason. Let's do this though. Actually, no, we don't have to do that. In this case, we can just destroy the bullet right away because each bullet is different. Okay, so now whenever it reaches the alarm, it's going to destroy a bullet. And it should be the last bullet that was shot. And you can see that the bullets are attaching to my waist right now because I'm not telling them to be destroyed when they touch me. I'm gonna let one actually touch me. Oh, that's right. They're not actually attaching to me now. Oh, that's right. I don't have them homing right now. So right now they're not homing, so you don't even get a chance to see them disappear. So let's change our alarm to divided by 4 or something, divided by 8, so you can see that the bullets are being destroyed. This should only make the bullets be able to move a short distance before they're destroyed. This is good if you want to have like a certain, so if you want to have a certain limit, like reach. You can also, say if the bullet from this point, like to, the point of existence down to from that point to how far you want it to go. So if like, I don't know, if it's traveled like 100 pixels, destroy it. You can also put on a timer like this, so that way the bullet would only go so far before it's destroyed. But then you have to adjust this depending on how fast the bullet's going, so that's how far it'll go. So let's say I want it to go a little bit farther than that. I don't want, but I want the bullets to only go a fixed amount of distance. Remember, speed and distance are related, so and time is related to distance and speed. If I have the bullets go faster, they'll actually travel farther before they're being destroyed. But that's how far they're going. So not going too far. So let's go divided by 2, half a second. So now they're going to stay there for half a second before they destroy themselves. But you can see that alarm is working. Yeah, see, so that's how far they're going now before they're destroyed. So this is kind of cool if you want like bullets that only have a certain... Well, I don't know why it's not shooting all 4 of them though. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not shooting all 4 of them right now, but it's not. Something with this, I have to figure out why that's doing that. I think it's something with this alarm that's kind of messing with the bullets. But yeah, so as you can see, that works, but that's how you do the alarm. Now, if I only have this in here, nothing's going to happen, and for the reason I already explained before. The bullets will, the alarm is never going to count down now. It's just going to remain there. Another thing that's cool when you write the alarm that way inside of a step event is you have an infinite looping alarm, so it's going to constantly redo itself every however many seconds you tell it to, or or half a second, whatever time you tell it to run in. So now it does nothing. So that's how you make alarms work inside of step events. Okay, but we don't need to do that. What we want to happen is we want to make the bullet destroy itself when it's like outside the room or something. So there's different ways we can do that. We can write a variable like if die, and then we can basically say that different things equals the depth of the bullet, and then that it's gonna die. My code is actually quite long and complicated for just simply killing it, because there's a lot of different things I want to account for. But an easy way to do this would just be something like if x. Remember, x here is equaling bullets x, so it's the middle of the bullet. So if x, since we're writing this inside of the bullet code, x is the middle of the bullet right now, because that's where we have the origin point set at, is greater than room width, or we could say or if x is less than 0. That means that whether it goes, is that right? Whether it goes left or right. That's if it goes left or right. Let's go room height, because right now the bullet's shooting down. If you want to destroy it going left or right, let's say your bullet's going left or right, then it's room width, so greater than room width, or x is less than 0. And those are the 2 ways. So less than 0 is to the left, so if it ever goes off the screen to the left, it'll destroy itself, so it doesn't just keep, otherwise it'll keep existing even though it's not on screen, and that's going to slow your game down over time. So you want to destroy things when they're no longer on screen. So if it goes to the left, it will destroy itself, and then greater than room width. Room width is the far right hand side of your screen. If it goes off of that, then that is outside the room itself, however big your room is. If it ever goes outside that room, it'll destroy itself. So that's left and right. You can also destroy it for up and down. In this case, let's say the bullet is only going to go down, so then you can just account for it going down. So if it's greater than room height, remember room height is the bottom of the room, and then well, actually I have to do y. If y, because we're talking about up and down, is greater than room height, like this. So if y is greater than room height, which means the bottom of the room, so if this object goes below the bottom of the room, it's going to destroy itself. And since it's shooting down at the player, we know it's always going to go down that way. But if you want to account for all of them, then you can write all of those. You can also say if y is less than 0, which means if it goes up out of the room. You can count for all four of those if you want to. And then inside of here, you're going to just say instance destroy. And since we're destroying self, we don't have to write anything in there. So now it's going to destroy itself. So now, if it goes outside the room, it's going to destroy itself. And I can actually prove that by adding some numbers to this just to show you, or minusing some numbers, which makes it go up, just so you can see it in action. But see, right now, as they leave the room, which is down here, they're destroying themselves. But you don't have no evidence that's happening. So let's go ahead and let's minus 32 from this. What that's going to do is make them destroy 32 pixels higher. Remember, negative is up on the y-axis. And see, now they're destroying themselves at the top of that. See that? At the top of that tile that I'm walking on. Because my tiles are 32 pixels, that's why minus 32. So now you can see that it definitely works. So take that away, and you know that when they're going off screen, they're actually destroying themselves. I always recommend to try that to make sure it's working right. If you can't see it actually happening, make sure it's like, do something like that, minus a number, just to make sure they're being destroyed, because you can't see them being destroyed. Now I know for sure they're being destroyed when they're leaving the room. Everything's working good. So there you go. Now you know how to hopefully code a lot of it. You can use this to code all kinds of cool stuff. I use the same code for my boss. Let me go and show you that real quick. Well, it's one boss that I have. This is the boss that was inside. She's a little different now, but pretty much the same. Inside the Castlevania engine, and you can actually buy that on Yo-Yo Games or Gamemaker Marketplace. It's a really good asset actually. It has stairs. It has it's a full functioning game, a Castlevania game. So like old school, like Castlevania 1 game. It's got the axes to switch from axe to fireball or whatever. It has all this as a full text engine in it. It's worth the money just for that, just for the full text engine. It's a full dialogue engine where you can have as many people talking on screen as you want. So I have her using she's using the same code right now that we just made. So that exact same code we just made for the spawner, I have inside of her, and that's how she's able to shoot these bullets. And because she's on a, well, I don't have her bullets are not set to follow me or to move toward me at all. They're just set to go, out from her. Out straight from her, the direction that she's facing. So whatever direction she's facing, she's just programmed to shoot those bullets in the direction that she's facing. I'm going to shoot a Hadouken at her. I'm going to kill her really fast just so you can see her death animation. I don't know why I had her say that. I just thought it was funny. That she goes, shit. Anyway, there you go. So, and this was, like I said, this was originally part of the Castlevania. Like I haven't changed this yet. This is gonna be the end of that level thing. But right now it just says that. Oh, I also haven't changed this. It's still gems. I haven't changed that to the blood thing now. If you notice on the top right, it's actually little blood spheres that give you the. It's similar to hearts in Castlevania. You need those in order to use your weapons, and then as you use your weapons, it depletes those. But yeah, so that's the exact same code for her. Only thing I did is I just, instead of having the bullets follow the player, I have her slime balls or acid balls just shooting the direction she's facing. So I basically just give them a speed, and that speed is times her X scale or her X scale. So that way it'll shoot whatever direction she's facing. Yeah, so that's that. Pretty cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can show you. I guess I can run through the logic on how to make a bullet harm somebody. So obviously you need to set an HP for your player, so hit points for your player, a variable that says, this is something that logs that number. Then you're going to change that number, either adding to it or subtracting from it, and then you're going to use that same number to update a health bar at the top of the screen. I can actually show you how to do that too. If you guys want to know anything else, I don't really update this channel very often, but I do like to, if I learn something to teach it, or if I know something to teach it, and if I find something's really cool to teach it. Look, I took an hour to teach something that I could have taught in 5 minutes. But the reason why I chose to do the long form of teaching is because if I did a 5-minute form, or you can go learn how to do this somewhere. I don't know if anyone else is teaching how to do this, a burst fire. But you can go look it up on a forum maybe and find some written way to do it. But then you don't really learn anything unless you already have a good idea about how code works and the logic behind it and all that kind of stuff. But for beginners, having long form like this is so important. I wish there were more long form tutorials out there like this when I was learning, and I wish there were more long form tutorials out there for things that I don't know how to do yet. So that way I can understand everything about why it's being done. And most things I can just figure out by looking at the code. I can go, oh, okay, I understand the logic. I can think about the logic because I know how to code a lot of things. But if it's more like things I'm not very familiar with, like using certain data structures, things like that, or even sometimes using certain things within like long strings, not strings, but what what do they call those again? Where you have like when you have, oh fuck, why can't I remember what that's called? Anyway, where you have a list of things and you're telling it to go to that list instead of just one number. So now your variable equals that list of things. I don't know why. I don't know. My brain is fried right now. I can't think of this word, or it's like two words, whatever. But anyway, I use it inside my player for the state machine, and an array. Okay, I don't know why I couldn't think of that because it is one word. So an array, it finally came to my brain. When you like, there's certain things that people do with arrays and with like data and stuff that I don't fully understand yet, and so I wish there was more long form tutorials for that kind of stuff, like stuff that I still don't understand and want to understand better. And so I have to sit there and like learn how to do it several times and do it many times, and then think about try to figure out the logic behind it and stuff like that. And it just takes a lot longer to figure something out. If I had a tutorial like this on that subject, it'd be a lot easier. And so yeah. Like for example, like when I wanted to learn how to do a combo, like like the Hadouken, that's a lot more complicated than you would think. It takes a lot of code just to do that simple maneuver. Press down and then right and then shoot a fireball and then punch. So down, right, punch, shoot a fireball. You think that'd be easy to code, but it's actually not. It's actually quite complicated. And some of that stuff took me a little while to learn because no one had anything out there, a long form tutorial explaining all the code exactly why it's being done. It's just kind of like there was little pieces of code here and there and some logic ideas here and there about how to do this thing, and I had to like figure all that out, and it took a while. I couldn't find anything on stairs either. I found like ladders, so I actually ended up adapting the logic of how a ladder works to make my stairs work, but there's so many problems that came up, and there was nothing out there that I just had to figure it out on my own. It took me 16 hours to get stairs working properly so I can jump on them and jump off of them and everything. And that's in my game. That's also in my Castlevania engine. So, all right, cool. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this immensely long tutorial, that's awesome. That means that you really want to learn stuff and the logic of it. But again, if you didn't want to watch all this, you didn't have to, because I talked about in the very beginning of the video, I showed the basic logic of it in the code so that you can just boom right away understand how to do it. But if you're newer, hopefully you appreciate all this extra work that went into this so you can understand the ins and outs of everything I did and what every line of code means and why it exists that way. So now you should have a deep understanding of everything we went through, and you can use that logic for other things. You can do other things with it. You maybe already have an idea of how to use this for other things. Like you can be like, oh cool, so that means I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but use that same kind of logic for a spawner with these timers and make something totally different happen. Instead of shooting a bullet, it can create enemies at different times. Oh, there we go, an enemy spawner. You can use the exact same spawner, the exact same logic that we have built, but instead of spawning a bullet, have it spawn an enemy. And that enemy has its own AI, so once it's just going to spawn at that area, and then it's going to go and do its thing. It's going to move around however it's supposed to move. So let's say you have like a top-down shooter, and you have enemies that just simply follow the player. That's all they do. That's their job. They have pathfinding and they just follow the player. That's really easy to program actually. And now you can use this as a spawner, so you can say exactly how many enemies you want to spawn on that spawner. You can say actually hold on, let's go back to the spawner real quick. I wasn't in this tutorial, but I want to. This is kind of cool because you can use this for that. So now you can say exactly how many enemies you want to spawn, and this would be the enemy here, that you'd put the enemy object here. So how many enemies you want to spawn. So let's say you wanted to spawn 3 enemies, for example, you just put number 3 there. You can say how in this case it's not going to be shooting the bullet, but how quickly you want those enemies to come out of that spawner, and that would be this number here. And then how long to wait before it spawns more enemies. Let's say we're doing zombies. So we're going to spawn 4 zombies, and we're going to spawn them all quite quickly next to each other. And then they're going to start walking and following the player. And then we're going, and this is remember top-down shooter, and then we're going to spawn them every 3 seconds. But then, 4 zombies every 3 seconds, that's kind of fast. Maybe you only want to do every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, whatever. You can do that. And another thing you can do is you can increment it to get harder and harder. So you can make another variable that counts, and then every time this reaches its thing, which is here, you can say that that count equals that plus 3 or whatever. And then every time it comes back, it's going to be plus 3. So every time it spawns, or every time this resets again, so it pauses for 3 seconds. When it starts again, instead of only creating 4, it's going to create more, because now we're adding more to it. See what I'm saying? That's anything you do. Or you can make this number increase and stuff like that. So anyway, that's kind of cool. So you can make the spawner get harder over time. Until it gets so hard that it's just impossible for anyone. It just produces so many zombies you can't kill them all. Another thing you can do is trying to think how else you can use it. Oh, you can make it random. So you can make the spawner random. You can just for bullets too. So instead of burst count equaling 0, I'm trying to think how you do it random. I'm just trying to think how you do it random for the amount of bullets or the amount of enemies it's spawning. In this case, you can say bullet count equals I random, like this. And oops, I think that's how you do it. Is it I random? Hold on. I forget what this code is. Oh, maybe it says I random? Yeah. I random range. Okay, that's what it is. So I random range, and then be between 0 and, let's say, 2. So this isn't pick a number because it's I random. It's going to be a whole number, a whole integer number. So no floats. Floats are points. Like 0.2 would be a float. So in this case, it's only going to choose between 0, 1, and 2. So at the beginning of this object's creation, it's going to choose a number between 0, 1, and 2. If it chooses 2, then we're only going to get two bullets created. If it chooses 0, we're going to get 4. If it chooses 1, we're going to get 3, right? Because we set this to 4. And you can always set this number bigger and then set that number range larger as well. And that's going to give you, but that's only going to give you a random for that first one. This resets it or this counts it up, and then this resets it back to 0. And so here you can also say I random range, and we'll go between 0, and this time let's go between 0 and 3. So now we might get 1 bullet, we might get, 2 bullets, 3 bullets, or 4 bullets. And let's run this. So imagine if this were zombies instead of bullets, and that was a spawner for a top-down shooter or something. Now it's going to randomly spawn every, oops, forgot to change this back, the room. So now if this was a random spawner, every 3 seconds is going to spawn either 1, 2, 3, or 4 zombies. And it's going to do that every 3 seconds. You can also change that 3 seconds to be random. So that time it's 1 zombie. That time is 2 zombies. That time is 2 zombies. 4 zombies, right? And it's going to be random every time. So add some randomness to the spawner. And then to add more randomness, you can also change how often this number here. So instead of it being, just room speed times 3, maybe sometimes you want it to be 3 seconds, and sometimes you want it to be 2 seconds, whatever, right? So here you'd say random range, and because remember, you just want that number to be different, just the 3 to be, you either want it to be 3. You can also say choose. If you want to just choose between specific numbers, you can say choose one of these numbers. So let's choose 2, 3, or 4. This means it's going to be times either 2 or times 3 or times 4. So it's either be 2, 3, or 4 seconds. So now every time this alarm is reset, it's going to spawn at different intervals at either 2, 3, or 4 seconds. See, that was kind of a longer wait time. Another kind of longer wait time. And just to make sure that, let's just make this very clear, just so you can see it is working. Let's do times 0.2 and times 1 and times 4. That way we can really see a big difference. So sometimes it'll be very fast, sometimes it'll be like 1 second, sometimes it'll be long, like 4 seconds is going to feel like a long time. We're just sitting here waiting for it to do its thing. That was 4 seconds. Kind of a long wait. That was the 0.2 seconds. That was 4 seconds. 4 seconds again. Wow, bunch of 4 seconds in a row. Wait, every single time it's doing 4 seconds. Why is it choosing 4 seconds every time? It was random at first. Now it seems like it's just doing every 4 seconds. Well, that time it was the 0.2. I don't know if you saw that. It like shot and then like right there. See, that was the 0.2. I'm waiting for it to do 1 second though. It's like in between shots, like right now, like just 1 second and shoot again. It's choosing that 0.2 a lot. It doesn't seem to be choosing 1 very often. Anyway, you can do it like that. Or what if we try random range between, let's say, 1 and 3. So this would be either 1, 2, or 3 seconds. You could do just random range, but then that's going to be like, everything in between, like between 1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. I wonder if you're going to see a difference. I'm just curious. I think random range seems to work better than choose. Choose seemed to really favor that last number. I guess I could have switched it around. Okay, so that time. Oh, because also the amount of bullets is random. That might have been why it seemed a little different. But see how it's pretty random. So not only the amount of bullets come out is random, but how often it's shooting is random. So it's hard to figure out like when is it going to shoot at me again. So if you wanted to add more randomness to it, that's how you can do it. But anyway, there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, do me a favor and subscribe if you want to see more tutorials from me in the future. And if you want to see me do something specific, leave a comment in the video of something you'd like me to cover in long form or short form. Let me know what you think would be better. And yeah, so that's that. All right, cool. Thanks for watching.